All right, it is 7 o'clock, so we will call the regular meeting of the Cannon Township Board to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jim.
Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father, we thank you so much tonight for the ability to come and deal with the issues before us. We pray that you will give us your wisdom and your patience as we approach these issues. Be with us tonight. Take us safely home. And we pray this all in your name. Amen.
Amen. Nancy.
Jim.
Here.
Cy.
Here.
Henry.
Here.
Jessica. Present. Steve.
Here.
Todd.
Here.
David.
Here. All right. Let's see. We need a motion to approve the agenda. I don't think there's any changes to it.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and supported by Spencer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Need another motion to approve the minutes of December 9.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Alice, supported by Jessica. Any changes, comments, questions, anything on them? If not, all those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
We need a motion to approve the bills, General Fund 18908 through 995. We voided 956 and EFT 793 to 805.
So moved.
Support?
Second.
All those in favor of approval of the bills say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Dave, how's our money look?
The money looks good. All the funds are healthy. Boswick Lake is negative cash, but that will be as we collect more winter revenue. That will be switching gears. So
Is that for their weed fund thing?
that's the weed fund thing.
Yeah.
Is that some of it in the savings? Because we shouldn't be negative.
Would say that again?
Is that in some of it in that special savings?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we're looking good though, Henry.
All right. Building permit report, self-explanatory. All right. Public comment says on related items related to the agenda. I don't really care what you come up and talk about. You can talk about anything you want, whether it's on the agenda or not. Anybody? Nobody? Okay. Oh, come on.
Let's, okay. Is that speaker on?
Light was on.
There you go.
Okay. Mary Scherzer, I saw on the agenda tonight that you're going to discuss the solar. And first of all, I'd like to say that I'm really happy that you're going forward and looking into that. And second of all, I guess it appears to me that you're just reviewing a bid that you got. But I would just like to say that I'm really happy that you're looking into the solar and really hope that you go forward with it, both as a cost saving method for the township, but I think it's a really good example for the township to show the citizens and the county and the state that Cannon Township takes our green perspective, that we are a great place to live and that we respect our environment and we respect our resources and that we practice what we say. And we are going to, we believe that we're a great place to live and that we practice what we say and we want to show that we do follow through with what we believe in. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Come on up.
If this is the time to comment about solar, I'm Georgia Donovan and 5744 Keys, Rockford.
Mhm.
And I'm also representing the Isaac Walton League, which I'm on the board.
Mhm.
And so I just heard that you were, gonna give some more thought to the solar thing. And I don't have much really to say, except for that we're very happy with ours down there. Of course, we don't use as much power as you guys do because we're not there all the time, but we have a separate array, 16 or 20 panels, I can't remember, in one big square. And that covers all of our power needs completely down there. So it's kind of neat. Gives you a feeling of security to know that you can do that. Of course, it goes back into the grid, but either way, it's there if you need it. And as far as rooftop or a separate array goes, they both accomplish the same thing, whatever figures out cost wise, but it might be, it's a little bit easier to go over and dust the snow off when it's on the ground. That's about it. Thanks.
Thank you, George.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, Jenny Aiello, Egypt Valley. This is my first time at one of these meetings. I'm trying to just find out what's going on around me. I read the communicator, talked about a park, didn't say anything about where it is, so I have no idea what that's about. I see there's also a Kitson Park. I didn't find that either. I don't know where that's supposed to be. I tried to Google it. And the solar thing, I have no idea what this is about. So going forward, could you just briefly explain what it is for those of us that don't know?
Sure. Well, we will talk about it tonight, but to answer your question, the Bulk Park is just down the street here on the north side of Belding Road. You'll see the sign. It's temporary. It's not how the park is going to look. It's a big undertaking that the county and the township working together on that. So it's not the way it's going to be. And then the Kitson Park is that north of the Honey Creek or the BLI? Yeah, it's on Kitson, just north of the Boswick Lake Inn, and it's on the east side of the road.
Right
It's
at the
a
top of the hill from the
yeah,
Bostwick Lake.
It's a small township park.
yeah, it's
Very
a
small park.
it's a beach, public beach, so that you can swim in Lake or in Bostwick Lake there.
Mhm.
Or you
So-
can go down and ice fish this time of year.
Mhm.
Yep. Yeah,
Yes.
you bet.
All right. Who else? Anybody else? Anything? Nothing. All right. All right. Let's start. Oh, yeah. The update on Kitson parking. Well, as promised, we didn't have a meeting at the end of the year, but we do have an agreement on the parking. Where is that? That was. Is it okay? Because I just had it, and I included a memo from our attorney. What's going to happen is They're finishing it up, but there is an agreement on the parking that should solve the problem down there. Part of it will be that there's going to be a new ordinance that the township can enforce with regard to parking. And we're going to be very aggressive with that. And because there was an agreement between the BLI and the Antique Mall that they're both in agreement that this should solve the problem. And if people decide not to go along with the program, the ordinance will enforce or allow us to enforce the ordinance as far as ticketing people, because that's what we're going to have to do if people just decide they're going to park wherever and walk across the street. Because as we said from the beginning, this is a matter of public safety, and that's what we're here for. So stay tuned on that, but we will be doing an ordinance, and we will have the agreement once it's all it is done. The attorney is just incorporating the agreed terms, but it is done, and let's hope nobody changes their mind on it, by the way, but who knows? I don't think they will, because they're in agreement. So stay tuned on that. But that is, we have solved that problem. Just have to do some paperwork on it. I don't know, because I'm not drafting them. So I've told our attorney the sooner the better. Let's see. So next up, any questions on that, by the way? It's, yeah, okay. So, all right, speaking of solar, Jim.
Okay. Several months ago, Mary talked to us about solar. I went and got, just thinking I knew what I was doing, I went and got quotes from 3 different solar companies, and they were from east to west, about as far apart as you can get, from a couple 100,000 to almost $1 million. So I went back to square one, and we started talking to our engineer about putting together an RFP that had all the bells and whistles that we want, plus so they'd be quoting apples and apples. So the engineers have come back with the RFP. Now it's up to me to get it out to the different solar companies. I've got 3 that I worked with before, and a couple others that people have suggested we send it out to. So that'll go out in the next week, and hopefully we'll get some information back. I don't know by the next meeting, because it's pretty intensive as far as what their requirements are. But we want to make sure we're comparing apples and apples, and get an accurate representation of what our payback would be, what our investment would be, if the state offers or the federal government offers any reimbursements. We want those to be fair and accurate, and not some sales guys saying, "Yeah, you can do this." So,
Right.
And as far as the roof panels, the reason we decided, or we talked about doing a solar array in the field, is, I don't know if you looked at the roof of the township, but it's not very conducive to solar panels. Most of it faces north, or much of it faces north, a bunch of it faces east, which, and then we have a lot of our air handling equipment, our air conditioners, our condensers, condensers on the roof, so they'd have to work around them, and it makes it much more difficult to get the amount of panels we need. So that's why we went to the proposal, asking for the proposal for in the field mounted.
And the roof is not due for replacement, but it won't be
Right.
too far away where we got to.
Yeah, we're looking at 5 or 6 years, maybe 7 on the roof, and it's an expense that if we don't have to do it now, if we can push it out, we can save money and move things around that way. So the RFP is here, and it'll go out, and I just brought it to everybody's attention so they know we're still working on it.
I'm sorry. Are we looking at putting it on the roof?
No.
We're not.
Nope.
Okay.
This is for a solar
I
array.
didn't think so.
Solar field.
And one of the things that in this proposal, it also includes 12 months of our electric bill, so that they're all looking at how much our needs really are. And this is the RFP with all the bills. I mean, it's 80 pages.
Oh, you sent them those.
That's what
Yeah,
this.
good. Yeah,
this
all right.
was
So
for.
this whole thing is the RFP.
Yep, the whole thing is the RFP.
Now I get it.
So that's that.
Because our big concern is making sure that we have enough power, particularly for the fire department, right? And
Correct.
everything
Yeah.
we need.
And if it's a, if it looks like it's a $500,000 investment with a 18, 20-year payoff, the life cycle of the panels is 20 years, and that doesn't make much sense.
Because then we'd always be doing it.
They'd always be doing it.
We'd always
So,
starting over.
but if it's a 10-year or a 7-year payoff, that's a whole different story.
Do we know what happens to these panels when they're replaced?
They put them in a landfill. They're non-recyclable. Although I read an article last week that somebody has developed components that are recyclable, just prohibitively expensive right now. So they are working on minimizing that downside of them. But we will look into that too as part of this proposal, what we have to do with the panels in 20 years.
Would it make sense to have these places come and address us as part of the bid process?
It may be when we get the RFP in, so that everybody understands once we get the bids back, so understand what it is that it all entails and what the benefits might be.
Because it seems like I don't know anything about these things.
I don't either.
And so it seems like to me that we would want to know that it actually, because salespeople will try to sell it to us. I think I would want to know first, does it make sense here? And where we're thinking of putting it, and I don't have a position on it yet, but it's surrounded by trees. I don't know. Does that,
Well, there may be some trees that have to
would we have to remove trees?
depending on, time of year. There are positioning things that you can do, panels that auto position to catch the sun, but it's
Solar panels
Solar
to power the place.
we spend $2,000 a month in electric bill, and if we can do, somebody I talked to said that, and I know Mary has them on her house. Right now they have a negative $190 account with consumers, and their electricity's been free all summer. So
I have them on my house. I have 20 panels, and I love it. I sell it back to consumers, and it's ideal.
Well, if it makes sense,
Yep.
And business sense, that it makes financial sense and it works for us, I don't know why we wouldn't do it.
we want to individuals. There's a significant incentive from the state and federal government, tax rebates and such that individuals get that the township won't necessarily get. There is some. It's not like a grant, but it's money that the state helps you pay for the project. So there is some of that available, but we have to find out how much and what we have to do. Part of problem we have in Cannon Township is we're an affluent community, and so they look at the median income of the community, and they say, "You guys really don't need to help." This for government grants or government assistance it is, and but that's we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Send
if you
it
would,
again.
Yep. Right. Okay. Well, and things we've done in the past, sometimes it has. So
Yeah, and I'm okay. We'll figure it out. All right. So good. All right.
so that's
keep
where
us
we are.
posted.
Yep.
Is this part of the facilities committee? Or
Yes.
It is. Okay. Anything you guys want to add? Anything you want to add to that?
No, not really. We got next meeting. We're going to talk about there's a huge list. It was kind of interesting. We looked in the rearview mirror and figured out all the stuff that we got done for the year. And actually, we're surprised. We're like, wow, we got a lot done. So next meeting, we're going to actually put that in the agenda of all the things that the facilities committee got done this year.
So when you said no, there's nothing to add, there actually was. Okay, good.
You know me. You know me. I'm going to say something.
That's good. No, that's fine. I just was waiting. So good. All right, no, go. I'll keep us posted, and we'll make the right decision on it. I mean, I have no, whatever is most cost effective, and it makes sense. It makes sense, right?
Mhm.
So, all right. Stay tuned on that, and then next up is your speed sign quotes. You talked about this last time, didn't you?
Yep. And I gave everybody the information on all the quotes. I've talked to several communities now that have these, and one gal was really, really informative there. They have 2 state highways running through their town,
Mm-hmm.
and they're a little community, and their officer was writing 17 tickets a day for people speeding through their town.
Mm-hmm.
Since they put the speed signs up, and they have them in both directions through their community, he's down to 1 ticket a day. So the speed signs do make a difference. Where we want to put it up is up by the Christian school, their driveway. We've had several accidents up there, inattentiveness, and people not thinking. The state won't let us put a school zone there because it's on a state highway. So we just want to give people an awareness that school zone, this is the speed limit, and so they're watching what's going on. So I got quotes from 5 different solar companies, or not solar, that was the other project, speed sign companies. And the company that we have currently, we have a mobile speed sign that's on a trailer that we can move anywhere in a community. And they were actually the lowest bidder,
Who's that? Which one was it?
Stalker
That's what I thought. Yeah.
out
Okay.
of Texas.
Yep.
And all but one of these companies that I quoted, all the products are all made in the United States. So that was one of my criteria. If we're going to do something, I want to keep it made in the United States. And Stalker has a great reputation. We've had good luck with our current sign, and their quote came in at $96,290 for the 2 signs.
Read that number again because you said 96.
$6,290. And for 2 signs, one is an 18-inch sign that'll go on Belding Road. They recommend that you only put them on 55-mile-an-hour roads. And the other is a 12-inch that will go in the village of Cannonsburg. We had the sign there, our mobile one, quite a bit this summer, and it really, really helped. So that will go kind of in front of the museum, the old Township Hall in Cannonsburg. And the closest bid to that was a company called Radar Sign out of Minnesota, and their quote was $1,700 more. So Stalker has been very competitive, and we're real happy with their products. Now these will be, we can get them in solar, but these will be 110 volt. I've talked to the Christian school, and they're excited about us even tying into their sign out front. So we'll run about maybe 150 feet of underground wire to the sign. So it'll be wired 110, so we don't have to worry about the snow and the clouds, and it'll work. If you go into Rockford, you'll notice sometimes theirs isn't working on Northland Drive, and that's because in cloudy weather you don't charge those batteries, so it stops working. And that's one of the downsides of the solar with these little signs but we can do both of them. The museum, we can pull power from there, so we can do 110 on both of them. So I'd like to recommend to the township board that they approve a price, and I added $2,200 in this quote for running the electrical. That's just an estimate, but I would like to make a motion we approve not to exceed $8,500 for the purchase and installation of 2 speed signs.
Support. It's been moved and supported by Henry, but your motion also is to accept the stalker bid.
Correct.
Because you just, yeah, okay,
Okay,
so it's
yep.
to accept the stalker
Stalker
bid, not
bid.
to exceed 8,500.
Right.
Is there any further discussion on that?
And one sign being 18 inch and one sign being 13 inch.
12. I said 13, but that was
Okay. Okay. All right.
a typo on my part.
Okay.
Permanent fixtures?
Yes.
Okay.
They're
so the
pole
one-
mounted, the signs are there all the time.
Permanently.
If you drive into Rockford on Northland Drive, you come down the road, there's a 25-mile-an-hour one that catches me all the time because I'm doing about 35 or 40. But they're all over the Plainfield's got a bunch of them now. A lot of communities are.
Have you
putting them up.
considered just getting one that you could move and
We have
We
one.
have
have
one. We moved.
okay, so it's not just permanent, put it here for a while, put it in Kansas
But that's what
Township
we
for a
do.
while.
Yeah, that's what we have now.
We still have that.
Okay. Because that seems like that would be cheaper. Is the
Yeah.
Christian school, are they helping to pay for this?
No, it's on M44, and it's a serious. It's an area of concern for traffic safety for the parents bringing their kids to school.
And for everybody driving through there,
Yeah.
not just kids
And
going to the school.
It's about in the middle of the township, so it's telling everybody slow down. This is a rural community.
All right. Okay.
All right. So any other comment? All those in favor say aye.
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 All
Aye.
opposed? Perfect. Go get them.
Okay.
All right. New business. Recommendation for denial of the request of Eastbrook Homes for rezoning of RR to R1 low density residential. Jessica, you're our planning commission representative, so why don't you walk us through this?
Sure. So this was on our agenda for the Planning Commission on November 12th. It was a fun meeting. It was a very nice packet put together, a lot of information. The developer actually provided a voluntary site plan to give us an idea of what they were looking for. Did everyone read the packet? Any questions on it?
So I have a couple. So
Sure.
the planning commission recommended that we deny the rezoning.
That's correct.
A couple voted for it, 3 voted against it. I saw, right?
Yes.
What were the general concerns?
There was a myriad of them, but mainly was following the, although it's just a guide, but following the master plan. There was a lot of things that didn't align with our master plan goals.
If Eastbrook just did a meets and bounds split, they would not need township approval. They could just divide their property up into 2-acre lots, right?
Yes, in a vacuum. Yes,
Yes. And they wouldn't even need to come to us for approval of that.
correct.
How many more lots are they requesting in this rezoning than they would get if they just split it?
Well, my understanding, if it was in a vacuum situation, it would be 2 acres per. We'll just keep it easy for 120. So it'd be around 65 homes, but this would be 64. So in theory, it would be 4 homes less. But then you have to accommodate for the road, any wetlands that might be there. So to say that it would be truly 65 homes in a vacuum, yes, but not necessarily true depending on the scope of the land.
Would it be fairly close though?
I asked our assessor, and I believe the number was around 17 that you could get on the parcel.
If they just divided it,
If they wanted to do the project right now, not have us discuss it whatsoever.
17 more,
17 total
17 total lots.
on the land. Maybe I
There's
misunderstood?
a large wetlands out there too that's taking a lot of the space.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So, okay. So, and if they developed it themselves, only the lots that would be within 200 feet of sewer would have to hook up.
Yes.
Okay. And we are getting more sewer than that on this.
Yes.
Because the way I read it, 24 houses we would be hooked up to sewer.
Yes.
That's always been kind of a concern on lakes that are in or properties that are in close proximity to lakes. That we want sewer wherever we can get it and as much of it as we can get it, right? But if they're more than 200 feet away, we can't force them to hook up any lots. So that's an issue. So, Mick, you're here from Eastbrook.
Yep. No,
Whoever you are, yeah,
me and Michael both. Will.
yeah. Why don't you walk us through this?
So I'm Mick McGraw with Eastbrook Homes, and this is Michael, and he'll walk us through most of it. We can answer some of those questions related to like a parallel plan that we would do and how many lots you could get and things like that as well. So
If you don't mind, can you start with if you were just to do a meets and bounds? I mean, you guys know the formulas about what you have to back out of it, wetland, slopes, whatever, right? So if you just did a meets and bounds, how many houses could you get in there?
I think meets and bounds is different than if we did it under the current zoning allows for 2-acre lots. And we believe we've done a parallel plan and it would be 57 or 58 lots.
And what are you asking for here?
61.
Okay. All right. So go ahead.
So I guess I'll run through kind of an outline and maybe give you a bit of the history. I'll try not to take too much time, but
It's okay. Got all night.
the property, you guys know where it's located, just just east of here at 7150 Belding Road. We spent a number of months working on this property, and I want to thank Edmund, Jim Scales, and Kevin Gritters. We spent time with each of them, getting feedback from them, kind of sharing our thoughts and getting theirs as well. And from that, we kind of worked hard to come up with a plan we thought that respected the feedback that we received and also took into account some of our desires on the site. One of the key factors in planning this was respecting the underlying zoning. We knew that we had to work on a plan that would be no more than one lot for every 2 acres of land. That was important. We have 130 acres total, as Jessica touched on. And the goal was also to do it in a way that's respected the surrounding land uses. Because if you look at the north end of the site and the east side of the site, it's different than what is at the south end of the site. So we tried to keep that in mind. Anytime we look at a piece of property, we try to think about what are the surrounding land uses and how do we respect those. We did submit to the Planning Commission in November. With that submittal, we had a review from the township planning staff. That was positive. We had the township attorney had looked over our submittal in detail. And he provides some comments in there which easily could have and since been addressed. And we had, as I mentioned, interaction with the township engineer, and he was generally supportive of the plan. We appreciated our time at the Planning Commission. We're thankful to have had the opportunity to meet them. We were surprised, Kelly and I were, she happens to be at another meeting tonight. We were surprised that they recommended denial. We didn't feel like we had a lot of opportunity for back and forth. In all the places we do business, we do value the feedback that we get. We like that process. We like to understand what they do and don't like and see if there are ways that we can address them or make small modifications to touch on those things. The background on how we came up with this particular plan is as follows. The site it's a pretty site. It's wooded. It's rolling. And again, the key goals were really as follows: adapt to what's there, preserve the character to the greatest extent we're able to do that, pay attention to the surrounding land uses and lot size patterns, respect the underlying zoning of not more than 1 unit per 2 acres, and preserve to the extent possible existing vegetation, tree lines, and work within the existing topography, limit to tree clearing and mass grading. When you have the whole southern 3/4 of the site being on well and septic, we are able to allow that road to follow the existing contour. And that allows you to remove fewer trees. The north part of the site, as you mentioned, the northern 24 sites would be served with sewer. There's a natural ridge that runs kind of east and west through the property, roughly, and it kind of runs diagonally, but generally right here. This was viewed as a positive by Kevin Gritters, your township engineer, from the standpoint, as you alluded to, that northern portion generally has a watershed that falls north towards the lake. So there's an inherent interest in getting those properties into the public sewer system so you don't have to worry about failing septic systems 20, 30 years from now, which I'm sure you're probably dealing with on some of the smaller lots that surround the lake. Again, we touched on kind of how we have a variety of different lot sizes, but as starting at the north end, those are the smallest lots that we're proposing. Even those are a minimum of 1 acre, which are significantly bigger than all the lots across the street that front onto the pond or the lake. And then even as compared to the lots to the east in Somerset Meadows, um, the 1 acre lots are double the size, even some of those there. As you get to the middle, the lots are about 240 feet in width and range from 1.5 to 2 acres in size. And then the lots furthest south, we've got some 2.5 acre lots, and then they go up to 6.7. We've got some 5 and 6 acre parcels here at the south end. The other thing this does is allow us to serve different buyers at different price points. We see the northern end on those 1 acre lots being probably 700 to 900,000. The middle on the 1.5 to 2 acre parcels probably ranging between 800 and 1.2 million, and the furthest south ranging from $1 million to maybe 1.6 million. If you wanted to drive through a project that has a similar look and feel to what we're envisioning here, we developed Squires Corner. That's located at the southeast corner of Squires and Parmenter. It's actually in Cortland Township, just north of 10 Mile east of Young. It is similar from the standpoint that the lots in there are about 165 foot wide, so those actually are a little narrower than what these will be on average in width. And what you'll notice is with that width and with that being a well and septic project, we're able to do a lot of tree preservation on the shared property lines. While you have some yard, it also leaves natural space between the homes, and it really preserves the rural character much more than what I've seen in a cluster project. I mean, we built a lot of the homes in Somerset Meadows, so we don't dislike that project, but when you have a cluster, you do a lot more mass grading and mass clearing, and it leaves you with a streetscape that is just all houses, where you don't get that rural feel of driveway, back to a house, trees, then the next house, and you can kind of.
So as part of your plan on this for people that are buying, oh, I see. So your part of the thing will be they keep the trees, and these are going to be wooded lots, small small yard envelopes with.
You've got to
preserve the.
I'll just add into some of that, maybe, and maybe crossing some of the same grounds that Michael had, but I've been doing this for 50 years, so I've been doing it a long time. And what he alludes to here is kind of what we see as a stewardship issue. We think every piece of property has a certain way it should be developed. We came in years ago and tried to work on the corner over here by Rick's grocery store when somebody else had developed it and had the streets. And we said, okay, well, that already exists. The streets are there. How can we make it work for somebody else
Mm-hmm.
failed? That took one approach. Then there's a piece of property like this, which is all wooded, and it's beautiful. We don't develop any property that Michael and I haven't spent a lot of time just plain walking it. And we've walked that 130 acres multiple times. We actually cleared a little path through it so we could get through it and look at it even more intently. And certain pieces of property want to give you certain things. That up there had all sorts of utilities. It made sense that the township had planned it for density, and we followed that.
Over here.
Over
Town
here.
Square.
Town Square, yes.
Right.
But this is different. This is a piece of property that we looked at, we said into our smallest lots. As you go back down through it, we can create a fabric, we can create different price points, we can create a different look. And then preserving the trees was really important to us. So like if you go over to Squires, we maintained, where there were trees, we maintained a buffer along every property line and the backs of the property so that one house isn't looking at another house. It just gives it a beautiful feel. So I think we can't just say, well, here's 130 acres and one size fits all. Every piece of property is different. So we tried to do that here. And the farther south we went, we looked at properties. I drove all these other roads. We went over to Dick's Farms. We went over to forget these little roads, private roads back here. But here you end up with, larger parcels, 4 acres, 5 acres, 6 acres back through here. So we said, why don't we create a plan that kind of, where it's smaller houses already, it's smaller lots, be slightly smaller, still much larger than what you're there, get bigger in the middle, and get the biggest in the back. And we think then that invites in different families, different types of people saying, look, I want the smaller lot, I want the really large estate. Could we do it where we just did make it like a monolith, 57 or 58 lots, all the same. Yep. And we'd meet everything you've got, and we could get, you almost have to approve that.
We wouldn't have to if you did like a meets and bounds, right?
We'd have to do meets and bounds. It's hard to do meets and bounds. We'd probably still have to plat it.
Oh, would you? You'd still have to come.
But,
But you could. What you're saying is you could have 57 or what 8 2-acre lots.
Parcels.
2-acre parcels.
Yes.
And get all the roads in, and it all works, and it meets everything in your ordinance. We just didn't think it was the way to go.
And so basically at the end of this, what you're asking for is either 3 or 4 more lots. But in exchange for that, you're willing to put 24 of the parcels on sewer, even though our ordinance and the law, state law, I think, calls for if you're within 200 feet of the.
Right.
So that otherwise, if you just did it the way you could do it,
We'd have 2 houses in sewer and
everybody
55.
else and everybody else on septic.
Yes. So, and we just think it's just a better way to build it. Town Square has its place. This is totally different. And we should give your community options for somebody that says, I want to live here, but I'm looking for that 4 to 5 acres, or I'm looking for 2 acres. No, I want to be slightly smaller, but they're also all in the same context of one community. The only couple things Michael alluded to, Edmund wrote a letter, I think he was very supportive of what he saw. Jim Scales had a couple things that he saw in there, and he said, because really we're asking for a conditional rezone, which we're not asking for a straight R1. We're saying, this is it. We can't come back and change it. We can never get more than 61 lots, and every lot has to be at least 150 foot wide.
Those that were served by
sewer
have to be
right.
a minimum.
All the rest are they're
larger than that.
They're bigger.
240 foot wide. So if they're and you're looking at Squires, those are 160 feet wide.
165.
So you get an idea that these are much larger than even when you go to Squires to look at those.
So what was the Jessica, whoever, I wasn't there. What did the planning commission not like?
Number of things that people didn't care for. Main thing was not sticking with the master plan. There was
Because the master plan calls for 1 house per 2 acres.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the things too. There was also concerns with the additional traffic along Belding Road.
With any development.
Right.
There can be a development though, because they own it.
Yep.
Right. Okay, go on.
Yep. There was a number of, I think we had 11 different people that lived in the area that said they didn't love the idea of it.
They didn't love what idea? This development in particular or any development there?
It was kind of split. We kind of explained the process and how even if this conditional rezoning doesn't go through, there still can be houses on that. And so it was kind of like a educational experience explaining how, the planning commission obviously is supportive of people wanting to do what they want to do on their land, but making sure this is the best use for the township. When you look at it as just 2 acre lots, that makes a lot of sense because this is, obviously it's a nice plan, but we really want to make sure we take our time on the planning commission and really put a lot of thought into it because we don't want to have any regrets down the line as the planning commission. And so we all voted on it, and denial was what was
And
the
so
consensus.
when you said you all wanted to take your time and analyze it, you voted no?
Yeah. Yep. Well, not everyone voted no.
I know. So did the traffic issue come up? Has there been a traffic study there?
No, we have gone to MDOT. MDOT's approved. We meet every requirement that MDOT has for road clear distance.
Are they?
The engineer. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to say our engineer's been working with the MDOT engineer. They've been looking at site distances and vertical curvature and all the different things that we always look at in a project like this, and we are highly confident that we're very close to having it resolved. I was at the public hearing.
Yeah,
It's the same stuff I hear every time I go to a public hearing, which is traffic. They didn't like the fact that the entry crosses the bike path, but that's the only frontage we have on a public road.
So you're okay. So what we do potentially doesn't matter if MDOT says, sorry, I know you were confident, but if they say this is not going to work, that's what everybody lives with, right?
That's right.
We have
When you-
multiple agencies, even after we're done here, that we have to go through.
Road Commission, MDOT, Drain Commissioner's Office.
Yeah.
Right.
Eagle, everybody. I mean, it's just the name, the normal thing.
So the concept, is this fair that this whole thing for us to decide is, do we want to vote to either not rezone it, which is what the planning commission recommends. And you need to know, maybe you know this, generally we follow what they say, but they're not elected, we are, so we're not bound by it. But on the other hand, we say, yeah, we rezone it, then you still have to do a lot of work.
Oh, sure.
I mean, yeah, and then it goes back.
Site plan approval.
It goes back to the planning commission for site plan approval, right? Well, so
We don't have objection, Steve, to working with the planning commission at all.
oh, I know. We've got a very good planning commission. What we got to do, though, we have to consider whether, because it comes to us, and that's the law. We have to make the final decision. Do you have anything more to add?
No, I think we've covered it all. I think back to the simple thing for us was we had 130 acres. We understand that you want about 2 acres for every lot. We said, okay, well, that's going to be, something less than 65 in our opinion. And then we do need to go through the parallel plan to go, what's the most that we could get if we just did it and cookie cutter it, every lot the same. And it's, in our opinion, not as attractive. That got us to 57 or 58. And then we just said, what's a better way? And we feel like we've got the better way here, but we're happy to work with anybody to say, if there's thoughts we can make it better yet, we're happy to do that.
Okay, so I guess I don't know if I'm missing something, but why are you willing to put in 24 units on sewer just because it's the right thing to do for the lake?
Oh, I think it's the right, I've been doing this for 50 years and yeah, you just need to do it the right way. We've been around as a company for 58 years and, I hope to be around for another 58 years. And you only do that if you attempt to do it right. Even when you're attempting all the time to do it right, you can make mistakes. If you're not attempting to do it right, you're making a zillion mistakes. It's a right thing to do. Where we can get sewer and make it work, we should do that.
So is it fair to say this, to boil it down? If it's not, somebody say so. But it seems like to me, what we're looking at here is a development. No, let me say this. It looks to me like we've got about 130 acres that are going to be developed, right? Because you own it, and that's what you do. Yeah. And that's what you do, right?
Yes.
So when it comes to the master plan and adherence to that, even though it's only advisory, the question we have to answer, it seems like to me, ultimately, is it worth it to the township to change the zoning to allow you to have, let's say, at most 4 extra lots in exchange for the township getting sewer on 24 lots instead of 2?
That's correct.
That's about it, isn't it?
As I have said to others, if somebody said, well, it should only be 60 and not 61, we're not sitting here going, this is it. So we like the exchange of ideas and what's the best way.
So there might be some give and take more if it goes back to the planning commission.
Yeah, and I want to clarify a little bit. Is it okay?
Yeah.
So first of all, I appreciate you guys coming in tonight and showing us your plans, but tonight we're really not voting on plans. All we're doing is we're voting to overrule the planning commission and what they decided and changing it to R1 so that they could do their plans and then come back to the planning commission with final plans, right?
All we are doing.
I just want to make sure I got it right.
Be a conditional though, conditioned upon no more than 61. If you look at Jim Scales' letter, which outlined the conditions that we had offered up.
Sure.
So it wouldn't just be a straight R1. I think that's an important distinction.
Right. It's conditional approval or conditional change. And we're not voting on this, but we are voting on this concept because part of the rezoning would be these commitments that Eastbrook's making about the 24 houses on sewer, maybe 61, maybe whatever. You guys will work this out with the planning commission, right? But
Yeah.
the question we have to answer, to me, it seems like as a board, is are we willing to say instead of one house per 2 acres, it's really, what is it, maybe 1.2 per 2 acres, given the
Maybe a little less than
No,
that.
it's still less.
Sure.
It's still less than one on a gross basis.
no what I'm saying is there's going to be slightly higher density. It'd be less than one house per 2 acres.
130.
Well, but it's not all developable.
We have to theoretically, we got to subtract those new roads going in.
Yeah. So the point
All
is,
spaces,
the
yes.
point is that you're asking for a few more 3 or 4
Correct.
extra units over what these ordinance would allow at one house per 2 acres, right?
And
Yes.
to give a variety of housing opportunities.
And we get sewer.
Yes.
So I've got concerns, and that's why I wanted to clarify tonight, because I don't have the time to get into all the concerns
We
tonight.
won't.
And we're not going to.
And once the final
So I
site
think
plan,
it
it's
comes
done.
down to a decision whether we're going to overrule
Yeah,
the planning
and it
commission.
goes back to the planning commission for final site plan approval, and that I don't think comes back to us. I don't think it does. Yes,
Can I ask a question?
you can ask a question.
So, is it possible to, they have a nicer plan, right? If you guys give in on the zone, why can't they have, or not, I would say why can't they? Can they have that nice plan and voluntarily hook up the sewer? Or is that at their negotiating place only if they give the extra?
I don't want to speak for them, but I'm going to anyway. It seems like to me what you're saying is for 3 or 4 extra lots, you can use that to put the sewer in.
We can, but the other thing is to offer, different price points. And so that we can have a few lots that are slightly smaller, and appeal to somebody that may only can spend, I say may only be able to spend 700,000. It seems like a ridiculous number.
They've changed a lot in the last few years.
With that number. But that's what we're faced with. So there's opportunities that somebody can buy for 700,000 instead of everybody.
And that gets back to what you were saying, the way you're doing it here, it blends. You got to the north of this, you got Lakes Residential, very, very high density, right?
Yep.
Then you've got the cluster of Somerset Meadows, very
High
small
density.
lots, but open space. But here's the point, and Todd makes a good one to reiterate, we're not approving this.
No.
All we're saying is if we vote, a vote to rezone is simply to say this project as it is in draft form in front of us, it makes sense to rezone it for the reasons said here. It still has to go back to the planning commission to work out the details of a final site plan. And then there may be give and take on that as you work with the planning commission.
Agreed.
But if we vote no to rezone, it sounds to me like the likelihood of having sewer on more than a few parcels is probably gone.
It seems like the building community and the governmental community should be able to have an interchange of good ideas. And so, well, here's the best way instead of always being, confrontational. And that's all we're looking for is what's the best way. We felt it's the best way to provide sewer, provide the variety of size, the variety of price points, protect the vegetation, have a great site.
Speaking of protecting the vegetation, can you not protect all of it? Because Georgia, there are, I know this property because I used to, before I got thrown so many times and broke like Evel Knievel every bone in my body, I had a horse. And I was the first township supervisor in over 100 years to ride my horse to a board meeting. I did. And threw me on the way home, and I had to walk because he ran. Anyway, there are so many autumn olives.
Yeah.
When you go down to the south through, you know where I'm talking about, that open kind of area?
Used to be a farm field that grew up in.
Would you be, I don't know, you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, get rid of the
Well, that's going to be up to the planning commission, but it seems like to me there's a good opportunity here because Georgia, are you still working on is Isaac Walton still working on the eradication of these things? Well, this might be a good partnership potentially.
I'm still a member of the Isaac Walton League.
Yeah. Well, you do now. Yeah, well, I think my view is that there's a lot of pluses here. And all right, I think we're done. Any more questions go ahead.
A couple questions. The Somerset Meadows or Summer Meadows, is that on sewer or is that on septic?
This is on sewer.
All sewer. Is the town square all on sewer?
Town Square is all
All on sewer. Silver Meadows on the backside of Silver Lake. I do recall that project. The requirement of that going in was sewer in every lot.
Right.
Is that correct? Yes.
Where's
okay.
this?
On the off of Silver Lake Drive.
Well, if you're talking about the one off the golf course.
Nope.
No,
That's
west
off
side.
of Silver Lake Drive, Silver Meadows.
Yeah, I think
That's okay.
East of Myers Lake and north of Silver Lake Drive.
And then how about all the new homes that are going in on the old golf course?
That's all sewer.
All sewer.
Mhm.
Is there
And then Sunfish Lake, a little bit farther to the east, that's all sewer.
okay? And I understand that there's a cost to sewer, but I understand part of the discussion at the other meeting at the planning commission was why you guys don't consider a PUD, and that was something that I know was slightly talked about a little bit. But is there thought of a PUD here? I mean, I know that changes things.
You mean an open space PUD, or this is a PUD, isn't it?
No.
it doesn't have to be. It can,
Okay.
it can be. The sewer, you cannot service sewer.
Top-
farther than-
topography.
Topography.
It goes up and then back down, and
The engineer weighed in on.
You could with a lift station though, right?
You could.
We don't like
but
lift
I don't think
stations.
we want a lift station for 37 lots. I mean,
Yeah.
the township
We don't want lift stations.
nor is this in their sewer district,
No.
nor are they contemplating. That was another topic you discussed that Kelly and I stayed to listen to after our subject matter was completed at the planning commission, and I think the current tenor is not to expand your
Absolutely, as
sewer
far as you
capacity.
can.
as I understand.
We took it as far as you could take it.
I guess just looking forward then, I mean, it seems like if all these developments around in the area have sewer, it seems like we'd want to at least think about a way to get more sewer in there. If that's, I understand the 200 feet, it's more than the 200 feet. You guys are doing more than you have to, but it seems like as a township level, that would be a concern.
Well,
All of those that you mentioned, though, I believe, I don't know each and every detail of those, all of them much smaller lots, like the one up on going up Myers Lake Road, no, not Myers Lake, up by the school, going up by the old golf course. That new piece went up there by Tibby. I mean, those are all small lots. Those are all 80 foot wide. These are 3 times the size of that. So there is an impractical not only to put it in, but even if you could put sewer on 250 foot wide lots, the township should not want that.
You can't
And
maintain
I
it.
spent a lot of time working
And
with
why?
utilities. To maintain it for
Okay.
the next 40 years would cost you a fortune. I mean, there's a practical point.
well, we would have to run a main down the road, and then we would have all those laterals. The laterals are not our responsibility,
No,
but the main off of Belding Road would be.
yeah, and just the maintenance of that over the next 50, 100 years. There's a practical.
There's a reason the zone, I guess maybe to answer your question, every township has various zoning districts. Those that require larger lots typically are not served by public infrastructure. And most places and in many parts of the country now are moving towards, if they are served by public infrastructure, they require a minimum density to be served, not a maximum. They encouraging density in the places that are served. This just is this whole piece, it's like going up the hill and you go back down, the sewer's not going to get, it's totally impractical. And it's also got soils that are very conducive to drain fields. That's what we've done.
That
before.
is all sand.
It's all sand.
Correct.
And it drops off
Back
as
there
you
by the
go
pines.
south.
All sand.
There, I know the ravine you're talking about, because then
Yep.
well, you know what? I think right. We would need that because of that ravine there. You're talking about you're going back to where the ravine is,
That's where we stop.
because there's a ravine that's pretty steep both ways, and so you would need a lift station. I don't even know how you would get. You would need a massive lift station.
I spent a lifetime working on sewer and water. It would be nearly.
What did Gritters say about this concept?
This preferred. He said, you're taking sewer as far as you can take it. it's servicing the land, as Michael said, it's servicing all the land that wants to flow towards the lake. Now you've got that on sewer.
That back also flows towards Sunfish and also Armstrong Creek.
Yeah, well, everything flows somewhere.
Everything flows somewhere.
So
Yeah,
yeah, grant you that. But this was the most practical way that he solved it.
Some of this is probably a conversation to have with your township engineer, just to give you a better understanding of where they look to provide sewer and where they don't, because it is a good one to have, but it's also good to have a good understanding of.
Well, I think that's an excellent point, and not to get into concerns. That's one of my problems. We're going to get deep in the weeds. We used to live in the country. Okay, this is not the country anymore. We are a suburb of Grand Rapids, and we're densely populated. And so for us to have well water and septic still in a densely populated area, to me, doesn't make sense. When everybody's putting cleaning fluids down their toilets and using Wink to try to get the rust stains off their bathtubs because we got rusty well water, and all that's going into our drinking water. So at some point, we have to look at that and say, do we do sewer now? And just going forward, everything has to be on sewer.
If you're going to do sewer, you're going to have to move to what the state of Michigan adopted under Jennifer Granholm. I served on her council, and that was you're looking at 4 to 5 units an acre minimum for single family. I mean, that's what you have to do if you're going to start servicing with sewer. It's impractical to manage and keep it much less density than that, which would mean a site like this, there would be a place that you'd look at putting 430 units.
Sure.
Right.
I mean, and that is something that to
There's
be
a case-
considered. There's a case to be made for that.
Sure.
So if that's the direction the township would want to go,
Yeah.
we look at your master plan, in which by that you say to us in your master plan, we want this to be about 2 acre lots.
Right.
When you say that, on the one hand, as government, you kind of preclude the logic of sewer and water.
Mm-hmm. The other thing too is if we're just voting to overrule the planning commission, that's one thing. But if we're actually voting to accept your plan in
We're not.
principle,
Let me
in
stop.
principle, okay. But the other thing is traffic. I know you've been talking to MDOT, but I do live on Sunfish Lake and try to make predominantly everyone's going to be making a left turn out of there in the morning, head towards Grand Rapids. Not many people go towards Belding to work. A few, maybe. So I do head north to Belding and try to take a left turn in the morning, and it is dangerous, and the traffic is heavy. And so this exacerbates that problem. And so until we extend a third lane or a turn lane out Belding Road, that's going to be a problem. So I'd like to talk to MDOT to see if that's been discussed about how they can
Yep.
widen the road, how
We
they can
have
make
to
that
do a
safer.
center for left on westbound traffic.
Okay.
So that answers your question with respect to, are they going to require a center for left? Yes, they are.
Okay.
And we have to build it.
Okay.
One thing I'll interject here about Belding Road and the state MDOT, I've worked with them way too long, and they are 100% totally reactive.
The
They
state,
The state,
100%.
they are not proactive whatsoever. They're not allowed to be. They have to look at what exists when they design. So once the development's in, then they can look at possibly adding a third lane or doing.
But you said they're going to require one.
They'll require
I do
one.
believe so. Yeah, I
For the
talked to my
develop-
engineer early this week, and we've got some of the preliminary feedback back on site distance, and we are going to have to do a center for left. I can't say with certainty, but all signs point to us having to build a center for left there, which wouldn't be out of character with other projects like this where we're connecting to.
It's the same thing we did with Orchard View. Between us and the state, we required that left turn lane.
For those things, we just subject ourselves to what is this next agency saying? And
I know that.
they all weigh in, and we have to do what they say.
Well, one potential benefit to us, I think we are looking at expanding the sewer main down Belding Road. I think it goes through that. So if you have to do that anyway, right? If you have to redo the road, at least in that section, that potentially could save the township money because they're going to tear the road up anyway. We might as well let them pay for it. And while it's open,
Like
we,
that.
huh?
We really appreciate that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you still here? So anyway, I thought you left. So anyway, you see what I'm saying? But anyway, you're right, Todd, because we can get down in the weeds on all this and we have enough. In fact, too much, because the question is this enough of a benefit and trade-off for the township that we should the thing is, should we overrule the planning commission? I know some of the comments that were made are, about the crossing the trail. Well, they can build houses there.
They're crossing the trail now in other spots.
Everywhere.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. And then density, well, they're going to develop it one way or another.
Mhm.
So should we try to get what we can out of it as far as,
So is it possible that they could go back and appeal the zoning board?
That they're appealing to us.
they're appealing to us. We're voting. It would go back to them to work out the details
Okay.
in a final site plan, and then it's up to the planning commission.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So I think, has anybody else have enough? Because I've heard enough. Does anybody else have any questions or anything?
Any more to add?
I
Go ahead.
I say I talked to Ed today,
Yeah.
and I have a motion to recommend to approve the requested conditional rezoning based on the information provided to the planning commission and was heard at the public hearing on November 12th. Approval based on the rezoning ordinance amendment and the conditions that are written within it. All sites served by public sanitary sewer shall have a minimum lot area of 1 acre and a minimum width of 150 feet. Dwelling sites on the sewer disposal must have a minimum lot area of 1.5 acres and a minimum width of 175 feet. All setbacks within the R1 district must be met except the front setback of the units not serviced by public sanitary sewer must be 50 feet. Sanitary sewer will be provided to 24 units located approximately on the north 1,750 feet of the development as indicated on the site plan seen by the Planning Commission on November 12th. Sewer must be approved by the township. The individual water wells will be provided for each unit subject to the Kent County Health Department approval, and a maximum of 61 units will be allowed. Layout of public streets and private drives serving the units shall be substantially as shown on the plan prepared by Excel Engineering with the latest revision to June 21st, 2024, as seen by the Planning Commission on November 12th.
That's a motion.
That's a motion.
Hang on. Wait a minute.
That's the motion to recommend approval of the requested conditional rezoning.
Well, we're not recommending anything. We are either going to.
We are there. They have requested a rezoning to R1 condition on those items, and the planning commission recommended denial of that rezoning request.
Right.
We are overriding the planning commission with this motion and approving the rezoning request R1 conditional on those items.
What if the planning commission comes up with more conditions that they want? Are we limiting them?
On the site plan, they have to,
We're willing to subject ourselves to the planning commission.
Wouldn't it make more sense just to have a motion to approve the conditional request for rezoning?
That's what I just did, but I detailed the conditional request.
He put in the conditions, and those sound like the
Those are
conditions
the ones that
Jim Scales had.
Oh, is that what's okay? So
This was developed by
All right.
Ed based on
all right.
scale.
Hang on though. So there's been a motion. Is there support? Somebody? Is there support? Nobody wants to support. I'll support it. All right. So Mary, what had something to say? Oh, come on up, or whatever.
I'll just speak in the microphone so everyone.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just had a question. It sounded like you thought it was a PUD, but then it was only going to, or it's going to be a request to rezone R1. So I was just curious, maybe Jessica, you understand being on the PC, how much say does the Planning Commission have when it's going to be rezoned R1 versus if it's a PUD?
Not as much.
Okay. And then my second question was, you mentioned the center, putting in a center lane. How long would you be required to make that? And the reason I ask is because there have been some questions about the new ball park and like turning into there, and that's like within a mile maybe, and whether that the two could be tied together to accommodate extra traffic from the park as well.
Yeah.
That's an MDOT
So we've got a motion and it was supported. So what are our concerns about this before we vote?
Go ahead.
Well, I think to me it seems like we'd want at least the planning commission on our side with this, and I understand that they're bringing up a great point, and I think that is there a way for them to go back to the planning commission with this again,
This motion sends them back to the planning commission.
but to ask for, because the planning commission denied this, right?
They did.
It was not unanimous, no. But I mean, if is there a way for them to go back to them and ask for this again, to like appeal it to
No,
them, or is it,
it's done. The rezoning, if we say no to this, then it's done. The project is done, right?
I think.
They'd start it over, basically.
You could remand us back to the plan. I've had other places remand us back to a planning commission, say, with kind of instructions saying, we kind of like this, but could you work out your differences with the planning commission and then come back to us? We don't object to doing that.
Essentially tabling it at this
Yeah,
board level. You're not agreeing or not.
right. You know, we'd love it if we just get our approval and can move on to.
But
the
all
next
an
step.
approval tonight does is give them the opportunity to go back to the planning commission to work out the details to allow this to happen. Doesn't mean it will. They may not. They may turn down the final site plan. They may not grant a final site plan unless they come to with what they want. This is just a mechanism that allows this planning commission to take it up. But if we say no to this, well then, I guess if we said no, we're not going to rezone it, then we're stuck with one house per 2 acres. And then let's hope that we get some more sewer than they're willing to do now. I don't know if they would or not. It's kind of risky to me. I think the preservation of the health of the lake and the water in this township is next to safety, is of utmost importance to me. In fact, you mentioned the Myers Lake, the development on Silver Lake there. Mick, I was on the board when we did that, and when that was one house per 2 acres, but they could have developed it without sewer, and so he wanted one house per 1 acre, and he said in exchange for that I'll give you sewer. And we voted for that. Planning Commission said no, but we voted for that because sewer to us was of utmost importance in protecting the health of the lake. Last thing we want anywhere near lakes
And our
is
drinking
septic.
water. Yeah.
Is septic, right?
Mhm.
We don't need that. We don't want it. And so all this does again is it just says back to the Planning Commission, well, we're going to go ahead and rezone it. We're going to grant the rezoning. It goes back to them for final site plan approval, and it doesn't come back to us.
To be honest, though, it's part of the fun that they have a tougher time doing this now. So I'd be completely honest with you guys. We're okay if you table us and send us back to planning commission. But if your planning commission told us no again, even after we try to work with them, we would be back here again saying,
Mhm.
well, we think they're wrong. I mean, that's kind of what we're saying now. We think your planning commission should have approved it. That is how we feel. We feel strongly about that. And these things all end up in one, 2 or 3 different ways.
Mhm.
And I've been doing this forever, is that we get an approval and we move forward. You don't get approval, you try and do something else again, or there's litigation. I mean, that's how all these
We don't like
things
the
end up. And I hate the third one. I've had to do that a number of times. I
Well,
hate that.
Again,
We're happy to do whatever you guys tell us to do.
hang on. Again, this just allows the mechanism to develop it, and to develop it goes back to the Planning Commission to develop it the way they want. And if we don't do that, they're just going to do something, my guess, that is not as favorable as what it is now. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I mean, if we table it and go back to the Planning Commission, my guess is the Planning Commission is going to say, what didn't you understand? Right? We don't want it rezoned. And that's my view on that. But I don't have a problem tabling it and sending it back to them with a message from us that we would like you to consider this. That's fine. To me, though, again, when you look at the preservation of the quality of the water and you look at the density, which is very close to 1 house per 2 acres, and you look at the traffic issue, that there's going to be a center lane, the property's going to be developed somewhere very near what they're asking for, and we get sewer on top of it. It's not a basis for me to say no to the rezoning change when what I'm hearing is, well, traffic's bad. Well, traffic is bad. It is, but it's going to be developed, right? It can be developed. Traffic or people are going to drive across the trail. Well, that's going to happen whether we do this or not. So my thing is, we get out of this what we can. And with Jim's thing is, it's basically this is the way that is generally going to look with as many houses on sewer as the topography will allow, which they don't have to do. So
Sure.
Anyway,
And this I'm on here, I guess. This was also recommended by our planner, our engineer, and our lawyer with these conditions. So our professionals that we hire to help the planning commission all recommended approval.
The position we're in right now, and I appreciate the work that you've done, and I'm not opposed to the development. I think you guys have thought it through tremendously. We've got a great planning commission that does great work here in our township, and I would feel better if I had a compelling reason that would help me overturn the ruling. In other words, they ruled on something, and I don't know what that is. And if I had a compelling reason that said we should overrule it because of whatever it is, so I'm just in a weird position. I don't like overruling the planning commission when I don't know all the facts and they do. That's just being honest.
well, no, I get it, but I hope it is. It's what we're supposed to do. So, Jessica, can you give us more detail as to why they said no?
Yes. So to get into more details on it, one of the questions was posed why not a PUD, and I don't know if you guys want to comment again on why it wasn't a PUD, it wasn't the choice. But if we want to work together as a planning commission with a developer, it needs to be a PUD, so we have a little bit more give and take. And my understanding was that you guys did not want to be a PUD for a various number of reasons.
What was discussed that night, as I understand it, Michael was there, was we want you to look at a clustered PUD, and we don't think
You're talking about it. What they're talking about is not necessarily a PUD. And this is why I asked. They're talking about an OSPUD. It's an open space. It's an open space plan unit development. What they want to do is have tinier lots with open spaces that are clustered.
That's where the planning commission sits more, because sticking with the master plan, having that rural aesthetic, even if we're allowing development in the same capacity.
We don't think you'd end up feeling that way. Now you're just going to give them. You'll end up with all these very small lots. It's going to look like a city.
It will. Well, and that's a very long and narrow piece of property anyway.
Yeah. There are some places that maybe that works. I'm not opposed to it. We have done it. It's not the fit here, and it's not what we're seeing that our customers are asking for. We're not asking for more. We don't think we're asking for more density. I guess you could argue, when I look at it, the 130 acres and 2 acres a lot, I look at it, say 65. If you get into the real nitty gritty, maybe you come down to it's only 57. So we don't think we're asking for more than what the township would let us have. We just want to do it in a slightly different way, but stay consistent with a large lot.
Right.
What else did they say?
The planning commission?
Yeah.
Sure, there's a lot of fun discussion. Let me pull up more of my notes.
But as to the open space PUD, if we voted yes on this, they can still talk about that with them. They can still require whatever they want.
Well, I'm not sure
we
that's
wouldn't
true.
do that. I mean, we wouldn't want.
I know you
to
would.
accept that.
No, what I'm saying is, it would go back to them, and you would talk about it. You don't want to do that, and you'd say, "Fine, we're just going to go ahead and do our thing, without our involvement." Right?
Yes.
And so why we would want to let that go with the sewer we're willing to get, I have no idea. But Yeah, we would we would be putting septic on top of Silver Lake, which makes no sense to me.
What's that jeopardize the lakes?
100%. So you remember, Mick, whatever it was 25 years ago or 20 or whatever it was, that development on that Cy mentioned, Myers Lake and Silver Lake Drive there.
Oh, yeah.
That was zoned 1 house per 2 acres between Lakes Residential and Bella Vista. It made no sense, that zoning. And so Mick said, look, give me 1 house per 1 acre and I'll put in sewer. So Tom Newhoff from Prine and Newhoff came in and he has this demonstration about what septic anywhere near, and it's a whole mock-up. It's a great big thing. Do you remember that? And he puts the dye in and it floats and it goes right into the lake. And I don't know, whatever the vote is here, my overriding concern forever, as long as I've been anywhere associated with the government of this township, has been the preservation of the quality of the lakes.
We just got a long history here, going back
I know
to
you do.
Bella Vista, and so it's I don't know how many years that
So
I've
see,
worked on stuff here.
What else did they say?
where am I missing a detail? Because I thought in a vacuum, yes, you could get 65 parcels because it's 130 lots. But then after I talked with our assessor, he was saying that there's actually only 17 lots the way it could be
That's under
split.
the Land
So
Division Act. He was
that's
commenting
just
on what you can get under the Land Division Act,
Right.
okay.
not what you get with the existing zoning.
Existing zoning would allow us
It
57.
would require the construction of a road to get those 57 lots. So it would look something like this, but they would all be the same size, and the road configuration would be similar, but a little bit different, probably.
Gotcha.
I have a question for Jessica. Was there any discussion that the planning commission took up about 24 hookups?
Yes. Yep. And actually, the next item that was on our agenda that evening was on sewer capacity. That's a big concern for the planning commission, just making sure we do our due diligence.
What about sewer capacity?
Just making sure that we have the capacity and making
Well,
sure that it makes sense.
Gritters recommends this. He's our engineer,
Right.
right? And I can tell you, Henry, you can, I think, weigh in on this, but sewer capacity for this development with North Kent and our system is not an issue.
24 is right near the end of our capacity until we get our pipe in.
Yeah, it met it all though, per Kevin.
Kevin
Yeah.
commented that it would be your current capacity would accommodate this, and I think there was one other project because he commented on that. That's like my next agenda item. I sat here and listened
Right.
to it. There was one other property. I think he said with those two we would be able to accommodate it. And beyond that, there's other considerations you have to.
And then we're done.
Right.
Yeah.
What else?
The green space, having more green space, which would be more of a PUD open space one, having align more with our master plan. Just going back to the master plan and making sure that aligns with that.
But you're keeping all the trees.
Pardon me?
You're keeping most of the trees.
Yeah.
Well,
That's going to
I
be.
guess the difference is, I mean, frankly, the master plan is one thing. The existing zoning allows us to sell 2 acre lots, and we can cut those up into 2 acre lots and sell them to an owner. I happen to believe that most people who are going to spend $700,000 to $1.5 million would prefer to own more than a half an acre, which is, if you do a cluster, you might end up with half acre parcels.
Like quarter acre.
You don't end up
to
with
half
half
an
acre.
acre.
It's a lot less.
Right.
Rather than the opportunity to own 2.5 to 6 or 7 acres. And Kelly, I think, spoke to that at the planning commission as well and shared that opinion.
This is all stuff the planning commission can take.
But part of that, the planning commission also says that only 17% of these lots are going to be 2 acres or larger. So that is a little bit of a gray area then with that.
Well, partly because we took lots at the end and made those 3 and 6 acre lots because we want that variety. So there's, I mean,
But that's all planning. That's all.
that was
planning
the
commission site plan.
idea of it, is to give you
But
that variety.
Still, I guess if you're giving me the option personally, I happen to live in Cannon Township and I live on a bigger parcel. I didn't want to buy an acre and share another few acres with a bunch of other people. I wanted the opportunity to have a place to have animals. I have chickens. I have dogs. I have cats. I think some.
Do you have permits for all those? Just
I'm not exceeding. Yes, I think I have plenty of acres to have. Like
I know you do. I was kidding.
But no, I think someone would prefer to own 2.6 acres or 1.6 acres. Some of the ones in the middle are not 2 acres. You're correct in that point, but it's still it's
But it,
gives them the opportunity for an outbuilding that a 1 acre, half acre parcel would not.
Here again is a thing though. If the planning commission is right that, people won't want this, I think that's wonderful because nobody will buy them. They'll go out of business. We're going to have a great big open space. Seriously. I think these people, and I've said this for years, I think you have, that it's their economic risk, and the market, their job is to gauge what the market will handle, right?
It is what we spend all day, every day doing. It's what I spent 50 years at, over consultants.
Right.
I have 30 and 40 years experience. I seem to be the oldest person now. But the other thing I think it's interesting here, though, I brought it up to Michael today. You go back to Thomas Jefferson when he was creating the Declaration of Independence. We always think of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. His original draft was life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. And it has been in the genetics of the American people to want property. Now you got to think of the European model, would have been that model where only the firstborn son got to keep the
primogenitor,
to keep all the property. So the idea was to keep it intact for just the nobility. They had 9 kids. It's only the first kid that really mattered because that would maintain nobility. When people came here from Europe, they're going, we don't want those things. And so he changed it, but that was his first draft, his life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. The ability, what we do, so I'm going to get on my soapbox. I'm very much proud of what we do as an industry. We're the only type of industry that creates a product that every one of you remember from your earliest memory, that house, and how big you think it was, till you go back to it. If it's like, I grew up in Ohio, so I go back there and go, it was really small. I remember it being really big, but I'm 5 years old. Everything we do revolves around that house. It's birthdays, it's Christmas, it's people crying because they're losing a loved one. It's this new baby. We have an awesome responsibility. We do not take it lightly. That when I say we walk every piece of property, we walk, and I walk every piece of property, and we'll do that till I can't walk anymore, because I think it's important that we do it right. So when we think, like we would planning commission, we think they were wrong, I won't necessarily give up. I'm going to go to the next step, and that's why we're here.
Right.
But at the same time, if you say, go visit with them again, we would like it if you'd instruct them, we think there's merit, can you work with them? We will do that, because we also believe we have responsibility.
Well, all right.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So we have a motion in a second, so we're gonna have to call this to a vote pretty quick. But why do you think the planning commission turned you down? Help me understand that.
I wasn't there, so I can only respond. Maybe Mike would. I don't know if we had enough chance for dialogue. I don't know if you can respond to that, but we kind of got. I think we got kind of a little bit short of going, well, what about this and what about that? If they were saying only open space PUD, that's the only thing we'll ever talk about, probably we wouldn't have agreed with that. So we may not have solved it that night, but you can add to that, Michael.
Most of the comments and conversation, it wasn't based in fact and real options. It was based in people's opinion who are getting up and saying, you're going to run over my kids. We don't want a connection over to Somerset Meadows. Well, that's our other public road connection. We don't dictate where we do and don't connect to public roads. Again, the agencies we referred to previously do that. So there was a little bit of, I think it would have been beneficial to have somebody clarifying that some of these things are completely out of our control, and we could have focused on the things that we do have purview over, and we could have had more productive conversation about that. Maybe some of the things that they believe the open space PUD allows for, we could accommodate for in here, like the tree preservation that we've willingly placed over a project like Squires, where we have a 50-foot buffer along the entire back that they cannot disturb. We have 20-foot buffers in the side yards that they cannot disturb, that are natural areas, that they cannot get into those areas for any reason.
That's what open space is doing in open space PUD.
Doing the same thing, but giving people the opportunity to own.
They own it.
Yes,
right.
And you have deed restrictions or language in your covenants and restrictions that keep them from cutting trees down that are larger than a specific diameter. So there are tools we have that can respond to some of those concerns, but we never really got to talk about the real concerns.
And if we say no to this, they won't. Georgia, what did you have? You've been sitting back there. Come up here so we can hear you, please. Plus, we have to do minutes, so.
I know this is confusing because I don't understand about the PUD designations and stuff. But if it was not rezoned, why would they have to chop it up into 2-acre pieces? Couldn't they still have their pretty design with some parts bigger and some parts littler?
Not with the current zoning.
So the zoning would say they
Requires a
all had to
2-acre
be,
minimum.
Right. It's a
E-
2-acre minimum, so they could just do a cookie cutter, 2-acre lots, period.
or they could not make as much money and have 2-acre lots plus some 5 or 6-acre lots.
No.
Okay, I just
Well,
want,
it's a 2-acre minimum. They could, but maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. I don't know. But the thing is, I think is that with this, the way this is, they could. What I do think we're getting is at least the opportunity to have the way it is with some smaller lots and then bigger, medium, and then bigger lots. So there is kind of it flows potentially. This is planning commission stuff. But with 2-acre minimums, you're going to have 2-acre lots. And then my guess would be, they would know more, but my guess would be that if they don't have the number of these smaller lots here that are going to be on sewer, but they're all at least 2 acres, I think the opportunity to have space for the other larger lots is gone. Isn't that right, Mick? And is that right, Mike?
I think so. But,
Yeah.
Our job is like making money. We're not denying that we're a for-profit.
Well, that's what you do.
right, it seems like it's all like, no,
Right.
it seems, I'm not against it or anything. I'm fascinated at watching how it plays out. And it seems like there's a lot. Okay, so if they're on the average $1 million each, which there's a few for the poor people who can only afford 700,000, then this whole thing is about the ability to make another 4 or 5 million.
No, I wish it was, but no, that's not quite true.
Okay, all right. Well then,
I wouldn't still be doing this for 50 years of that.
okay, all right, because I know
No, you would have retired quite a long time ago.
I'll excuse myself because I'm in over my head, and I'll admit.
That's all right. Thank you. We don't judge anyone. It's okay.
Yeah. If you guys want to table us and you want us to go back.
Well,
to the planning
I have an idea on that. Why don't we do this? Why don't you withdraw your motion? And why don't we send it back to the planning commission with our concerns, and so that they can develop a better record as to why they don't want to rezone it.
There you go.
And Jessica,
I feel good about that.
can you make them give us specifics?
Well, I think we did that evening, and it would really boil down to the master plan. So I don't think we need to really rehash.
All
I
right.
think Kelly and Michael did a really good job presenting. It was an excellent packet. There was just a lot of goals that didn't align with the planning commission's.
And you
Well,
don't
they can
think we're
still
gonna-
work those
We
out.
won't get a different result from the planning commission. We go back and try and meet a few of their things.
I don't know if that's, so I'm sitting here thinking what makes sense to me is if we could table this just so we can get more information from the planning commission, understand the why. I have to
Well,
understand
she
the why.
just said we got it all.
Yeah, but I still would like to talk to them. I read through it and I'd like to talk to them, get a better idea, and I would be more comfortable to vote then. I just am having a hard time because I don't really feel a compelling reason to overrule the planning commission at this point.
Henry, what do you think?
I'm very impressed with your willingness to work with us.
Yes.
Very impressed to see that from you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Jessica, why did you vote to approve the rezoning?
Well, I voted to approve the rezoning because I think people should be able to do what they want to be able to do on their property, and
Because they own it.
because exactly.
And they still have to
Exactly.
work with that's the thing. They still have
Absolutely.
to work with the planning commission. It's
Um,
not like if we do this, they start cutting trees down. So I don't know. I mean,
But then when
Jessica, do you think if we send it back there, we would get any more information than we have?
I think that if there's a lot of changes that could be made, if we're willing, I mean, basically the planning commission wants to see more back and forth relationships and being able to have the ability to work together on it. And when it's classified the way it is, I don't believe that there is much influence that we have because
Would the planning,
With the
just to
PUD,
give your
we can.
opinion, would the planning commission ever agree to 61 lots or 60 lots?
Well,
Are they
mean-
saying, but are they going to
I don't wanna get
an
into
open space, an open space PUD?
I don't
You're
want
not-
to
you
speak
said-
for my
all right.
team.
So here's the thing. If we say no on this, then if we say no, then that's that. But and then that's going to force them to do whatever it is they are going to do. To me, there's not much of a record that we would be able to stand on as far as defending ourselves if we had to, right? If we vote yes on this to rezone, all it means is there's a mechanism by which the planning commission can go have this give and take. They can work together, which you will, on getting this thing done. If we say no, it's over.
If you say yes, it does give the direction to the planning commission. Work with them on something very close to this. That is what
It's
that
a
says.
conditional rezoning, which basically limits the number of lots.
And
requires the sewer
Jim's
connection
motion
to the 24.
is very specific, and that's going to bind them. And
Right.
and that's what our lawyer recommended in the first place.
But if in that interchange, the next time at the planning commission, they says, well, how much tree preservation will you do? You know, okay, talk to me what you like. Let's work on that. Is there any
I trust
areas where we could put a?
I trust
Is it appropriate to ask what the vote was? Who voted for what?
Yeah, it's in the memo. It was 3-2.
If it's on page 88 and 89.
Right on the bottom of page 80.
My thing on this is so close to what they would be allowed anyway. I don't know.
Then we would prefer the vote tonight, and we could go then work on those things with the planning commission. If,
Do you have enough?
if absent that
Dave?
vote, we won't get anywhere with the planning commission. It's not worth it.
Yes. Okay. Isn't the planning commission going to hold their feet to the fire?
They will have the final say. It doesn't even come back to us.
In 24 hookups,
To preserve the quality of the lake?
I mean, I wouldn't even want to see the project go through if there wasn't 24 hookups.
Well, it might not if we say if we don't rezone it.
So if they're going to hold your feet to the fire, 24 hookups is attractive to me. That's
Jessica, will you, as the planning commission, will you hold their feet to the fire?
Well, I'm going to follow what the master plan says and have rational conversations with my teammates and make sure we do what's best for the township. So, yes.
I would hope you would
Our
vote for
attorney.
it tonight and vote yes, and then we go back and work with.
Well, we're just going to vote on whether or not to rezone. What you guys do is not our thing. 'Cause
Steve-
what?
That's what we would prefer.
Can we just make a motion to table this till the next meeting, just so we can talk?
Well, it's up to Jim. He made the motion. What is it that we're taking?
What are we going to gain? If you read, I read through the meeting minutes of the planning commission.
I've read it too. I don't know the ins and out of all of the zoning rules right now, and I'm wondering is it opinion is why they said no, or if it's fact because it doesn't meet some
Well,
requirement.
She just told you that they said it doesn't meet the exact, I think this is right. It doesn't completely comply with the master plan because there's not one house per two. It's not 2-acre lots. There's a blend, right?
Well, more open space, more community, more trail, more feeling like the way the master plan's written on development in the area for where it's
Okay.
zoned right now.
And if we say to no, and if we say no, your ability to require those is what?
Not.
0.
Yeah.
Right.
But we can't require a lot of things right now anyways because it's not a PUD the way it is.
Well,
There's a conditional, but we can't do anything besides the condition that
Just-
the lawyers
We're gonna,
laid out.
let's just vote.
But
on it.
even where we have a PUD in Orchard View, they have voted among the residents there not to include the trail that the planning commission requested in the original plan. So now that plan has been changed not to have the walking trail around the plan because residents didn't want it. They didn't want other people walking
We're
through.
getting way down into the weeds of what the planning commission. Here's the thing. Trails are not a part of this. Trails are not going to be a part of this. Open spaces. Well, I don't know. Here's the problem. Here's the problem with going and talking to planning commissioner outside of the record. Right? I have a bit of a problem with that. That's what the minutes are for, and that's what the record is for.
Well, and I think if the planning commission could have been included on this sooner, I mean, you guys were having discussions for this, what, a year maybe?
Who was?
No,
Just with Ed and it wasn't.
not those.
I had a couple of meetings with them just conceptually, and
Oh.
I said, go to the planning commission. I don't have anything to do with it.
Gotcha. Well, it seems like the planning commission would have liked a little bit more. We got a lot of information, but it kind of seemed like there was like Ed knew about it, and I guess the part
He's
that
the zoning administrator.
the question though, I guess, was on page. It said something about June 21st
Yeah.
on page 80. Does that mean that this was being worked on since with the township since June 21st, or is that?
I don't know what June 21st of when.
I don't know. It says on page 80 of our packet talking
That's
about
just
the maximum.
that's the date of their plan,
Gotcha. Okay.
and that they worked on that stuff on their own.
The last revision date of their plan prepared by Excel Engineering, the last revision date was June 21 of this year.
So that's the plan that we're looking.
So
And
you,
it's not uncommon for us anywhere to go speak with township engineer, township planning staff. We actually can't legally go meet with a handful of planning commissioners, and you're not.
no, you
allowed to
can't.
with us, so it's
Right.
not-
So what you did was you revised the plan as you were getting input from the engineer, right? And MDOT, whatever.
Meet with Kevin just to know what could we do with sewer, where could we take it, how far. You have to do that. You know, in fact, if we come to planning commission before we do that, then the planning commission is mad. You didn't do your homework.
Right.
So we were doing our homework by the time we got to the planning commission.
Well,
We would hope you would vote for this tonight. and-
I'm ready to vote. Jim, do you want to withdraw your motion so they can go talk to planning commissioners?
No, but I would like to make one statement about if we vote to turn this down and they elect option 3. Remember option 3? The township has done that twice that I know of, and we were sued and we lost in court. Number 1 was the boat storage on the corner of Blakely and Belding Road.
Mm-hmm.
We lost that, and the judge did the site plan. The judge knows nothing about site planning. So we want to be real careful where we take this, because like I said, the judge knows nothing about site
No, and you're leaving.
and we have no input after that
I
point.
trust our planning commission to work with them to come up with a great plan. But we just got to give them the opportunity to do that. And the only way to do that is to approve this. All this rezoning does, by the way, is allow a few smaller lots than 2 acres, but the average density is very close to 2 acres. It's really not that complicated. So
I want to.
it's been moved and supported. Nancy?
Sigh.
Can I just ask a question? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I thought
No, is that okay?
Yeah.
No. So this motion, who was this given by? That Jim read?
Jim read the motion with
Right.
all the parts that are required by the attorney. So we're not making it up. It's very strict requirements on, and this is what the attorney said has to be in it. And that was what was in his recommendation.
Okay.
So we're not making it up. It's all legal that way. Any other questions? You have more?
Do you have anything else?
More questions? All right. Are we ready to vote?
No.
All right.
Henry.
No.
Jessica.
No.
Steve.
Yes.
Todd.
No.
David.
Yes.
Jim.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Good luck.
Not sure where it goes from here.
I'm not either, frankly.
We will see what we can accomplish some other way then. But thank you for the time tonight. I truly appreciate it.
Can we now?
No, we're done. No, we're not going to do this.
No,
We're not going to do this.
Okay.
We're not going to vote no and then say, can we do whatever? All right. So that's great because, I hope the lake survives, but that's okay. All right. What's next? Testing. Oh, are we? Oh, yeah. Planning commission appointment. Who are we appointing?
We're taking Eileen from the ZBA
Okay.
and bringing her on. So I have only exchanged emails with Eileen, but we're very excited to have her on board for the planning commission.
Good. Do we need to vote on that?
Yes.
Let's vote on it. Somebody vote to approve that appointment.
I'll make a
that
motion.
Is there support?
Support.
I vote no. No, I don't. All those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Testing of wells in Cannon Township. So do you want to tell us what's going on? Because this affects your property. Or do you want me to just do it?
Sure, I'd be glad to.
Go ahead.
My name is Dan Wilson. I'm the owner of 7440 Blakely property. That property has been subject to interest from Rockford Township for a number of years, dating back to 2021, I believe, was the first access agreement that Rockford Township actually had proposed to me. And that was proposed by Thad Beard, who is the city manager of Rockford Township. And the details on this have always been very sparse, to the point where I have wondered myself, what is this all about? Because there is 13.28 acres that have sat there for 10 years in my name now, and I have done nothing with it, solely for the purpose to keep it there. So when I do want to build a house, it is nice and wooded. It is back there. It's high, it's dry, and it is a very beautiful plot. Now, with this, I have 16 neighbors. Butts up right up against the back end of Bella Vista properties there. And, you know, for the sake I can't completely understand, as I have delved in to find out exactly what is going on here, I know Rockford Township is in a need for pure drinking water. I understand that. Believe me, I share their plight. They've got problems and they've got problems. We know. They are looking for a solution for drinking water. However, it boggles my mind as to think that Rockford Township would go so far out of the district and over and around the corner, down the road, over here, over there, and over there,
Right.
to a piece of property that is sitting there where they would be interested in putting a pumping station, if you will, behind a Bella Vista Township. Seems strange.
It does seem strange. So I can tell you that you came in to see me about that, and I told you that I would call Thad Beard, who
Absolutely.
did not call me on this beforehand, which is the way they do that, but that's okay. Here's the thing. What I did after that is I told you I would do that, and I called our engineer and told him about it, and he was familiar with it, and he explained, which I think I called you back and said, you know, this is the way this kind of condemnation or eminent domain works, right? That they have to show a necessity, etc. So
Absolutely.
in our packet, we have, I got a memo from our engineer that goes through the process.
Yep.
And what's that?
I've read it.
Yeah. And so the thing is that neither Cannon Township nor actually you, the way eminent domain works, is that we can't, all they have to do is show a necessity, which is not a hard showing because they have, their water is an issue, right? Now, so I don't know why the science behind it, but they have shown a necessity here because their engineer, their hydrologist has identified your property as property that they can extract water from.
Woohoo!
Lucky you.
Oh, I'm just kidding.
I know that. Well, lucky you, but unfortunately what we have to do here, in fact, when you came in to see Jim called me, you were quite upset.
A little.
You know, and he said, "There, I'll die on this hill, right? And right, yeah, I'll spend all our money stopping this." Well, the law is that we can't. We did the law.
Here's the thing.
Go ahead.
The whole thing. Okay.
Yep.
Now, if it's for the betterment of the community, if Cannon Township is going to be able to share in this, and looking at the water agreement between Rockford and Cannon Township, there is some stuff in there stating, no, it's up by Portland and 10 Mile. I agree. Some of that stuff there.
There are residents of our township that are on Rockford water.
Yes. If there's a pumping station that could go in there that could be beneficial to Cortland, okay, hey, you know, I'm not opposed to moving forward. However, the first agreement that I was sent for a purchase agreement was insulting.
Well, that's between you and
Yes,
Rockford.
it
It
is.
is.
That's why this is actually following the suit that it is. The
Well, then
agreement,
that's
the
fine.
access, and all of that.
So I will tell you this,
It's
and
us.
then the first thing I did also tell you that based upon the law, which we do have to follow, whether we agree with it or not,
Yeah.
is that this is eminent domain. We don't have any authority over that. It's a whole federal thing. And so what I told you was that it's something to work out with Rockford to, and it's fine if you don't.
And
But what I
willing to do that.
well, that's okay.
No,
But here's the way this works, and the reason I wanted this on the agenda, and it was funny because that Beard said, "You're going to put it on the agenda," and I said, "Well, we put everything on the agenda." And he said, "Well," he said, "I just don't really." Yeah, I said, "Well, that's the way it goes." So anyway, because we do everything here out in the open. The in our packet is the memo from the engineer, which we will probably anyway, and that talks about everything. And then the attorney wrote us his opinion. It's not opinion. That's why we shared it, because it's not attorney-client. It is an explanation for how things work under eminent domain. And so the long and short of this is that the city can, under the law, do what it's doing. Canon has no say in it, except our attorneys are going to represent the residents of Cannon Township at the point when and if the hydrologist determines that there is water there that can be pumped, because then we're going to get involved and work with the state, because ultimately Eagle, the state of Michigan, decides whether it will have any impact on the people of Cannon Township. Because if Eagle, and their job is to protect the aquifer and the people of Cannon Township, because it doesn't make any sense, and Eagle won't do this, I don't think, is to say, well, Cannon, it's going to be your problem now. You won't have any water, but Rockford has theirs. It doesn't work that way. And our attorneys and our engineers will make sure that it doesn't work that way. So we will protect the people of Cannon Township and their water, but so will the state, right?
Sure.
We're just going to make sure they do. So that's why I wanted it on here on the agenda, because word gets out, and if people thought that Rockford was coming in to take all our water, it's not the case. It's just that if it is something that can be extracted for Rockford and some of our residents who need it, and it doesn't affect Bella Vista or anybody else in Cannon Township, well, then they can do it. And that's just what the law is.
right. Well, we haven't got to that point. At this particular point in time, the only thing we're talking about is drilling for soil sampling. However, there have been plans put in place where some of the drilling would be taking place. Now, should we come to an agreement on a final value of the property, what it will actually cost to do this, what they're willing to accommodate me with for doing that on the property, things can move forward. But I'm
well, good.
to do it.
Well, I would work with Tom, and who's here for Rockford, but it's like I said to you before, I would work out the best deal you can get for it, because they can do it. One thing I also told Thad Beard was that many, many years ago, Rockford annexed the property from Cannon where the family fair is. I told him we might want that back at some point. So, and it's a vote of the people. And so we have 14,000 and they have 4. But God forbid I run it by our board, because I'm not sure they'd understand that. But anyway, so that's what I told him.
Well, the question I would have is this property subject to being annexed so that they could do that?
Your property? Yes.
Okay, so that's what
Not annexed. It's a little different from annexation. It is a condemnation.
Correct.
Through eminent domain. Right. They can do it, and that's what the law is. Now, I also want to remind you that which I said to Thad is it's highly unlikely that his hydrologist will find water there because he's been wrong almost every time so far, right?
You know what they say about the dog?
Which dog?
Right. You
Okay.
never know.
Okay. Anyway, good. All right. So
Sometimes
anyway,
sunshines, you know.
what? So that's why I wanted this on the agenda. But I didn't want word to get out that they were taking our properties no matter what. There's a whole long process so again, my advice to you is to work with them. You know, my understanding is they're willing to work with you to compensate you for acts. Go ahead.
To the trustees, just the
Why don't you tell us who you are?
so we can say this publicly. Eminent domain, a condemnation by the city of Rock would be a very, very last resort. In fact, Dan and I have worked quite a bit on this over the past few months to try and avoid that. We haven't come to an agreement yet. There's still more work to do.
It's only if there's no agreement.
Yes.
And it's like I was saying, it's only if Rockford finds water there that is sufficient to meet their needs, because then they've met the legal standard of necessity.
Correct.
Which means a court will find, because it's a low bar for the court, and it's basically just what Rockford says. If they show through a hydrologist in their test wells there's water there, they've met their burden.
Exactly.
And then it goes to the state of Michigan. So, you know, I think we have to let it play out, but you know, we can't just start going in and taking everybody to court and spending money on that, because we would lose.
And I would just add for the trustees and the resident, I am also a resident of Cannon Township, so this concerns me as well. This is not the first place that the city of Rockford has looked for water.
Right.
They have done test wells in Cortland Township and multiple locations that were unsuccessful. We've searched within the city of Rockford boundaries, Algoma Township. Fact of the matter is this is our future moving forward for whether it's Cannon Township, Algoma, Cortland, city of Rockford, city of Grand Rapids Township. Eventually, there's going to be additional needs for municipal water, and state has requirements that have kind of pushed Rockford in the direction that we have to find additional pumping sites, and we've had some property owners who've been willing to allow for testing, for drilling, without success. So the hydrologist has pointed us in the direction.
What?
Some not.
Yes.
But keep in mind, you've got the Bella Vista development to the south on a community. They have their own water system, and then you've got just down the street, dry wells down at Hunter's Ridge, and my understanding is it's on the same aquifer. So we just have to let it play out. So, which is why I wanted on the agenda to just make sure people understood that there's really nothing that we can do, and the process has to play out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Question I have for you: with that particular property, would that one at 13.2 acres, as it sits as a rectangle, ever possibly be able to be split like a site condo if I was to keep that?
Well, yeah.
Site plan?
Well, you go talk to Ed, but you can divide it. Yeah, you can divide that.
Okay.
2 acre. I don't know what the zoning is there. So, but go talk to Ed.
Okay. Well,
All
I
right.
really didn't know what we were going to talk about with that tonight, and it clears up some things.
Good.
So that's good.
It is good. That's what we're here for. That's what we do sometimes.
I didn't
Okay.
want to alert all the residents of what was going on.
What's that?
I didn't want to alert all of the residents what was going on.
No, we did, because we don't want, people wondering. So that's why we
Right.
do it. All right.
I thank everybody on board. Thank you.
Thank you. Cy?
Yes, last year the Invasive Species and Wetlands Committee spent roughly $3,500 on treating the bittersweet vine, and per the recommendation of the committee tonight, we would like to move forward with using the Kent Conservation District again in calendar year 2025. And then the invoice that is in the packet is to not exceed $4,000 in calendar year 2025. And I just I know I'm a little bit under the amount that trustees or board members are allowed to spend, but I wanted approval from the board to continue to move forward with treating the bittersweet vine on township property. So it's behind the township building and then along the path that's within the township's rights of owning that property or having the rights to that property, easement to that property. Correct.
You need a second?
I do.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Now we need a motion. I think we need a motion to approve the Prine Newhoff rates.
Make a motion to approve the Prine and Newhoff rates.
All been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. There's no correspondence. Any committee reports?
The city's committee will have a report next meeting.
The what will?
Facilities.
Oh, okay, good. Anybody else?
There's no planning commission meeting tomorrow. It'll be next month.
Big deal. All right. Comments by board members. Who has anything?
I have one. Our contract with Plumber's Disposal for the cleanup, fall cleanup, and the spring cleanup expired this past October. There was a 3-year contract. I'm working with them now to create another 3-year contract. They presented one to me today. I got it about 3 o'clock. It's a 25% increase over the last contract, and I'm not comfortable with that. So I've gone back to them. Actually, I only left them a message because everybody there had gone home. So I will bring it back to the board when we get a resolution or we look someplace else. So I thought 25% was a little high.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, the January 25th, as I've mentioned previously, there'll be a performance at Rockford High School starting at 7 o'clock. It's Rockford's Got Talent. You can buy tickets at the door. I believe they're $10 a piece. And the performances, we have a 10-year-old, the youngest I believe is 10-year-old, going up to adults, and it really is a nice night out.
Did you get my?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah. I had my house tested for radon and I found out I had radon in
That
my
explains a lot.
and
Go
it
ahead.
happens that January is radon test month. And so it's worth having your house tested.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Who's next? Anybody? No? Public comment. Who has anything to say to us? Anybody? Nobody? Oh, come on up.
I'll just say that the January 25th reminded me that there's also during the day Winterfest at the Isaac Walton League. In case there are any kids, we'll have ice fishing and archery and candle making and all that good stuff from 11 to 3. And yeah, and that's all, except for I'd also like to just throw out the thought of having smaller houses allowed in the zoning once in a while, because that's sort of, a movement to have more energy efficient, smaller
I agree, but
houses.
whatever.
Well, I'm just saying my wish, that's all.
I know. And preservation of lakes and all that. That's okay. Anybody else? Yes.
Okay, so I was looking through these quotes for the speed signs. I spent 20 years managing commercial construction projects, and you said that you would not be using the solar aspect of it because it's Michigan. But that is in some of the quotes, so I don't know if you're going to go back for an amended quote without the solar options.
I keep forgetting.
Yeah.
I talked to each of the companies about the solar option. It's about a $1,100, $1,200 option on each sign. And so because the 110 volt is available in both places we want the sign, it didn't make sense to even propose the addition, especially with
Correct.
like
Yeah.
when we have snow, they stop working.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, I couldn't tell which quotes.
Yeah, none of
so-
the quotes that were here.
Just wanted to make sure that wasn't included in the price. If you're
Nope.
Right.
Okay, terrific.
What else? Anybody else? Nothing? All right. We're adjourned.